Ever since Alec Guinness and David Prowse clashed in 1977's A New Hope, the lightsaber duel has grown and expanded into becoming one of pop culture's most recognizable and beloved aspects of this universe. This following list then will rank every single lightsaber clash in the Star Wars movies, from the 1977 original to The Rise of Skywalker, looking at the nostalgic classics and seeing how they hold up with the more technologically advanced duels of the 21st century. And no spoilers from me, but despite how many there are, it is impressive how few fall short of the mark. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is every Star Wars lightsaber duel ranked worst to best. Number 17, Qui-Gon Jinn vs Darth Maul, The Phantom Menace. Honestly, despite this coming last, I have a major soft spot for this fight, which gave audiences a chance to see both Qui-Gon and Maul in action and not so subtly tease a later rematch. With the desert planet acting as a vast and sweeping backdrop, the two clash with no real victor, as Qui-Gon finds himself picked up by Obi-Wan, leaving Maul stranded. Unfortunately, this duel is all too brief, and is only really in place to make it clear that the Sith have returned to the galaxy, and that Maul is the big bad our intrepid heroes will have to face down in the film's final act. Number 16, Rey vs Kylo Ren, Round 2, The Rise of Skywalker. Rey and Kylo Ren's second meeting can barely be considered a duel, but rather a prolonged conversation about where Rey came from. The reason it ranks higher than Maul vs Qui-Gon though comes down to the technical achievement of the clash, which sees the pair bonded by the Force and moving between two vastly different locations. The editing is fantastic, and the whole sequence allows the two leads of the sequel trilogy to continue their prolonged and twisting feud in a way that the films had never explored previously. It also deserves props for the slow motion destruction of Vader's mask stand as well, which makes for a striking and powerful image. Number 15, Luke Skywalker vs Kylo Ren, The Last Jedi. Okay, so technically this one isn't really a duel since neither opponent deliver any blows and one of them isn't technically there, but what does it matter? Luke's confrontation with his former Padawan is truly brilliant, a beautifully shot exchange in which Kylo tries everything in his power to cut down his former master whilst Luke happily messes about with him, dodging every one of his raging advances. As the fight kicks off with Luke dancing around Kylo's strikes, it becomes increasingly clear that the Jedi Master isn't actually there, and is instead using his final moments to allow the rebellion to live another day. Everyone has their thoughts on The Last Jedi as a film, but with a moment as seamlessly crafted and compelling as this, it's not difficult to see why it has its fans. Number 14, Obi-Wan Kenobi vs General Grievous, Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith is jam-packed with lightsaber duels, and for the most part, they're all epic and deeply personal confrontations that pit friends against one another and let good and evil clash on a big scale. However, this one between Kenobi and Grievous is the weakest of the bunch. Still, it is memorable. I mean, after all, this is the fight where Obi-Wan delivers his immortal hello there jibe and gives fans a chance to see an adversary with multiple lightsabers in action. It starts out quick and flashy as well, as Obi-Wan manages to cut off two of the cyborg's hands and hold his own before the clones attack and the general is able to make an escape. Sadly though, that's kind of the end of it, as the rest of the fight isn't really a duel, but rather an epic chase that ends with Obi-Wan shooting Grievous with a blaster, offering up yet another wonderful Kenobiism in the process when he says, "so uncivilized." It's a fast-paced and exciting exchange, but it doesn't quite live up to the hype. Number 13, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker vs Count Dooku, Round 1, Attack of the Clones. One of the best part of Attack of the Clones' surprisingly good final act comes with Obi-Wan and Anakin's duel with the sinister and supremely powerful Count Dooku. The scene reveals Dooku's devastating use of Force lightning and shows just how great a duelist he is when he badly wounds Obi-Wan. The one-on-one between Anakin and the Count is a particular high point, as Skywalker dual wields both his and Obi-Wan's lightsabers, and the pair battle in near total darkness, paying homage to Luke and Vader's fight in Return of the Jedi. It may not be very long, but it solidifies Dooku as a serious threat and sees Obi-Wan and Anakin working together in a duel for the first time. Number 12, Mace Windu and the Council vs Palpatine, Revenge of the Sith. Now this is actually more of a solo Mace Windu vs Palpatine duel, since the backup council members are all dispatched with relative ease and little input. But they are technically there, so they're included, even if their efforts were, well, let's face it, pretty embarrassing. The fight between Windu and the Dark Lord, though, is actually seriously cool once you get beyond all the memes that the fight has generated. It's the first time in the saga that Sidious is ever seen using a lightsaber, and it delivers right off the bat, with the duel filled to bursting with intensity and hold your breath close calls for the stern Jedi. The fight also deserves a shout out for ending with Anakin Skywalker officially turning to the dark side, as he chops off Windu's arm and allows Palpatine to throw him out the window with unlimited power. And no, I'm not gonna do the voice. Number 11. Yoda vs Count Dooku, Attack of the Clones. It was a long time coming, but in Attack of the Clones, fans finally got the opportunity to see Yoda in action. Always wise, thoughtful, and patient, his violent confrontation with his fallen Padawan is absolutely brilliant in this film. The reason it's so good is because it comes off the heels of the surprisingly easy defeat of Obi-Wan and Anakin, making the Sith Lord appear close to unbeatable. But of course, this is Yoda we're talking about, who shows Dooku that he still has a lot to learn. The duel is quick and relentless, and though it ends a tad too soon, it's still a great showcase for the little green Jedi's skills and the compassion he has for his allies. Number 10. Obi-Wan Kenobi vs Darth Vader, A New Hope. This is where it all started. This duel remains one of the franchise's most iconic moments, and for good reason. In its day, there can be no denying just how astounding and game-changing this whole sequence was, and it certainly captures the film's idea of good versus evil extremely well. Yes, it shows its age now, and yes, it is a bit slow, but the Obi-Wan vs Vader fight is not really about the choreography or even the emotion felt between the two opponents. It's about Obi-Wan realizing that Luke is the new hope, and his part in the boy's story, at least in the flesh, is over. Number 9. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker vs Count Dooku, Round 2, Revenge of the Sith. Though this fight isn't quite as flashy as their first encounter, Obi-Wan and Anakin's final standoff with Dooku is better than their Attack of the Clones battle because it allows the Jedi to work together more substantially and ends in a majorly shocking death. The duel speeds up in its final push to the finish, with Dooku eventually losing his footing and being overpowered by his much more committed opponent. The finale is brutal as well, with Anakin taking the Sith Lord's hands and then beheading him after being told to by Palpatine, setting into motion the young Jedi's final descent to the dark side. Number 8. Yoda vs Palpatine, Revenge of the Sith. This duel is symbolic of the entire franchise, pitting ancient good against ancient evil in a final bid to take control of the Republic. This symbolism is best encountered with the fight setting, as the powerful pair duel with both blades and the Force in the Senate chamber, representing the loss of democracy and peace that is taking place. Yeah, it's not very subtle, but when has George Lucas ever been subtle? This stuff works for a reason. Once more here, we get to see Yoda bouncing around like a hyperactive ball of light, blocking the Sith Lord's advances and holding his own against his use of the Force in the chamber. The duel itself is over quite quick, replaced with a Force face-off where the pair throw things at each other and attempt to catch each other out. In the end, Yoda is forced to flee, realizing that Palpatine has grown far too powerful to be defeated. It's a tragic end to an intense fight, and offers fans one last chance to see Yoda in action before his exile on Dagobah. Number 7. Rey and Finn vs Kylo Ren, Round 1, The Force Awakens. The strongest aspect of The Force Awakens comes from its new protagonist Rey, and a compelling antagonist in Kylo Ren. In the film's final act, the pair face off in a snow-covered forest, immediately looking unlike any duel before it. Before Rey and Kylo can actually come to blows, however, there is a brief and anxiety-inducing duel between Ren and former Stormtrooper Finn, who does an admirable job of holding off the much more seasoned fighter. Hell, he even wounds him briefly. Rey then comes onto the scene though, using her newfound abilities to hold off her opponent, who in turn grows angrier and more committed as the fight wears on. As the music swells and Rey embraces the Force, the scene cements itself as a high point in the sequel trilogy. Number 6. Rey vs Kylo Ren, Round 3, The Rise of Skywalker. Rey and Kylo Ren's final fight is easily their best, and unquestionably the strongest sequence of the clunky Rise of Skywalker. Taking place on the ruins of the second Death Star, whilst raging waves crash around them in a visually stunning backdrop, the two fight it out one last time. The set piece has all the typical aspects of a great duel, with dangerous surroundings, narrow footways, and emotional payoff shining through with every clash of the pair's lightsabers. Soaked through, emotionally battered, and equally determined, the fight puts both Rey and Ren on full display, allowing their inner turmoil and confliction to guide them forward. It's a seriously emotional showdown with all the hallmarks of a great Star Wars duel and one of the saga's very best uses of scenery. Number 5. Rey and Kylo Ren versus the Praetorian Guards, The Last Jedi. As we enter the creme de la creme of the franchise's duels, we come to the most mesmerizing moment of the entire sequel trilogy. Now, sure, it's technically not a lightsaber duel again since the guards aren't using sabers, but it's such a beautifully shot and exciting display of choreography and violence that it just has to be included. The whole sequence, shot to perfection by director Rian Johnson, plays like a classic samurai film, complete with great cinematography and a clear turning point in the relationship of Rey and Ren, which would be further explored in The Rise of Skywalker. There are of course things to nitpick in the scene like disappearing weapons, which some fans like to use to prove this is somehow a complete disaster of a scene, but everything can be torn apart when you go frame by frame, and this set piece as a whole was just next level. Number 4. Luke Skywalker vs Darth Vader, Round 1, The Empire Strikes Back. The most iconic duel in the entire franchise, Luke and Vader's first fight is where the duel solidified itself as the most exciting part of the series. Obi-Wan and Vader might have kicked things off in A New Hope, but it was here that the duel was fully formed. All told though, it's a very one-sided affair. Having only just returned from training with Yoda on Dagobah, Luke is way out of his league when it comes to facing the imposing Dark Lord. Vader just tosses him around, swiftly evades his strikes, and eventually takes his hand, ending the fight in particularly brutal fashion. The final revelation, of course, now the stuff of cinematic legend, only manages to make the fight even more emotional and harsh, beating down Luke not only physically, but emotionally as well. Number 3. Luke Skywalker vs Darth Vader, Round 2, Return of the Jedi. Empire Strikes Back might be more iconic, but Luke and Vader's second showdown is a much more complete and entertaining duel. This comes down to the fact that Return of the Jedi sees Luke in full control of his abilities, with the fight doubling as both the emotional and action climax of not only this film, but the original trilogy. Facing off in the throne room of Darth Sidious, who spends the scene goading Luke into using his anger to slay his father, the pair find themselves evenly matched, trading epic swipes at one another and offering even more emotion than in their previous encounter. The setting is brilliant, Vader's dialogue is dark and taunting, and the final moment, where Luke prevails and cuts off his father's hand, ends up as one of the most powerful moments in the original trilogy. Number 2. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn vs Darth Maul, The Phantom Menace. From Darth Maul lowering his hood and revealing his double-ended lightsaber, to John Williams' unbeatable Duel of the Fates musical score, this is one of the single greatest moments in the entire Star Wars franchise, hell, in any franchise ever. With mind-blowing choreography and the lingering, palpable feeling that something is about to go very, very wrong, the duel pushes both Jedi to their limits as they fight their way through Naboo, leaping around and slashing at each other with vicious intent. The most nerve-jangling moment of the duel comes when Obi-Wan is cut off from Qui-Gon and is forced to watch as Maul cuts his master down, unable to do anything to actually save him. Obi-Wan attacks once more and eventually gains the upper hand, cutting the Sith Lord in two before consoling his dying master. It's a thrilling, seamlessly executed battle and would sit on the top of the list if not for one other duel. Number 1. Obi-Wan Kenobi vs Anakin Skywalker, Revenge of the Sith. There are 3 things that make a great lightsaber fight: choreography, emotion, and storytelling. In the final duel of the prequel trilogy, each one of these aspects is brilliantly achieved. It's epic in both scope and length, pitting Obi-Wan against his fallen apprentice and friend in one of the most emotionally harrowing sequences in the entire franchise. The fight goes beyond good and evil though. It's friend versus friend and brother versus brother. The fate of the galaxy, yeah, it's at stake, but the true power of the duel comes from the broken relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin. With its dark and fiery setting exploding and crumbling around them, the aesthetic looks as though they're fighting in the depths of hell itself. It is incredibly theatrical. Sure, it can be argued that the duel is a touch over choreographed in places, but that's not enough to take it away from its place as being the best fight in the saga. It has it all and then some, and of course ends in truly soul-crushing fashion as Obi-Wan leaves his old friend burning after cutting him down and proclaiming his brotherly love for him. I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of this ranking of every lightsaber duel? Does your own personal list look anything like this? And do you think I've got this spot on or completely wrong? Either way, while you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't know, I've been Josh. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.